to the cloud. Hello. So we're here, we're at Coaching Conversations, and I'm Tina Campbell. I'm the co-founder of Free Enterprise Warriors. We're a consultancy connecting people to opportunities. And I'm here today with my friend Dave Hauser. Hey, Dave.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for talking with me. This is what it's all about. Tell everybody something about yourself.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I had a change in careers by choice. Before that, previous 20 years, I was a college strength conditioning coach. I worked all over the country, loved it, loved every second of it. Loved the challenge, loved the relationship buildings with all the kids.
Well, you were collegiate, and you were also, though, in some of the what was it, major league, or what was it?
I started my whole background started with an internship with the Buccaneers in '98. So I went backwards. Everybody else starts with internships in colleges. And I started mine with the NFL, and then just wanted always to coach in college anyway. Thinking it would be an amazing career, and it was.
Yeah.
Until the politics will get you it eventually.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had a pay raise in 7 years or so.
Wow.
So I was just looking for ways to make money outside of that, and just happened to be going through my life insurance underwriting, and that's how my whole journey understanding money, how it really began, because nobody had ever talked to me about it before.
Well, that's what happens too, right? So you were for 7+ years, right? As a coach, I mean, however many long, and you didn't know anything about really creating wealth, or
no.
You were just going along with, and as you said, you weren't even getting a raise. So
yeah, I was just going along with what people were telling me to do, and
right or wrong.
And I wasn't getting anywhere. I was still struggling paycheck to paycheck. Some of my habits, I would just spend too much time doing things, wasting money, going out to eat, going out to bars and things like that.
Yeah.
It was just wasteful. And it wasn't until I started looking at life insurance and understanding where my money was going. Like I did an audit basically.
That's awesome.
And I was like, holy cow, this is a big problem. So over the next 7 years, I was just working on creating better habits for me, right? Mm-hmm. So as being a strength coach, it was just working reps after rep after rep after rep. That's the same thing I did with my finances. But when I left coaching, I had a very difficult time relating the two things.
Right, but yet it really is like I've seen you blend these two now, and it's become, you're coaching to help people, again, create the wealth, protect themselves, all the things that, so it's not like a life insurance thing, it's a coaching. You're coaching.
Yeah. So what happens is when kids would come in, let's just say you're going to a doctor, right? I had a physical this year. You go into the physical, and what's the first thing they do for you?
They usually take your vitals.
Yeah, they take your temperature. For me, they did height and weight and all these other things. EKG, they did the whole thing for me, right?
Yeah.
But why do they do those things?
We have to have a baseline too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. So you're setting up, this is where you're starting from. And now there's a point where we can measure from.
Right.
Or measure back, or we can always look back to. Right. This is where you're at, and this is where we came from. So that's kind of the way. It's kind of the way I work with clients too. Right. They come to me, saying, Dave, number one thing is I don't understand what's going on with this. That's the number one reason people come to talk to me. I don't understand this. Okay. So let's see what's going on. And I actually take a picture to create a picture for them in the software that I use. It's proprietary. Mm-hmm. And we get all their financial information on one piece of paper, easy to follow. They know exactly what their money is. They know exactly how much savings they have liquid and available to them. And we keep it simple. We take all the confusing jargon out of everything. And I just talk about exercise a lot. And that seems to be a really, most people I talk to are, most of my clients are active people anyway. So they understand it. And I understand it because taking care of yourself and being, right. So if you take care of yourself in the gym or whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
even if you're just taking a walk every day, that's going to have an impact on your outlook on the rest of your life. And that includes your financial picture. So it's not just about finances. It's about creating a self-reliance on you, a person, in other aspects of your life. Finances happens to be one thing that we really focus on.
And most people have no idea. That's it. And certainly even I'm thinking about, like, my own kids who are millennials, right? They're, it's almost like starting to teach them good habits and having a baseline. If they know where they are right now as millennials, they can really set themselves up to understand, make the pivots that you need to have when you have certain life events happen.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of like, it's easier, correct?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where if you listen to most financial people out there, they're telling you to keep your money invested, invest into this fund, invest in your 401k, your retirement account, whatever. But they're not talking about your savings. They're talking about putting money away for the future as your savings plan. But that's an investment. So one of the first things we do is differentiate between what is savings and what is investing, because they're not the same thing, right?
Right. No.
So we help people understand that. And then where can you store money? How much can you store? Is there a limit to how much you can store? Is there a penalty if you have too much savings? Right? Could you imagine if you got penalized if you had too much savings?
Yeah, well, probably somewhere you do, because there's always that, that's where it's called taxes.
Right. And so that becomes part of a tax strategy. How do we eliminate being taxed on your savings every year? And those are just things we talk about. These are things that are available to everybody, but most people don't know what that is.
Not only that, not just availability, but just, I know myself, if I don't understand it, I just get lost in it. So, if you have someone like you, who's, a coach, so you can, how to talk to people and say, okay, listen, this is what, let me show you, right? Like you're showing them the playbook, right?
Yeah.
Of like how to move this thing forward. That's really cool.
So it's one of those things where, just to use a sports analogy, right? Defense is natural for everybody. It's ingrained in our human being.
Right. Fight or flight.
Right. So imagine though, if there was only an offensive team, you only had an offensive team.
You had no defense.
You had no defense, right? What are the chances of those people actually winning the game?
Yeah.
Zero. or otherwise the other team has to be so incompetent.
Well, they have all offense also.
Yeah. So it'd be just a big shootout, right, at that point. But it's just pitch and catch. And that's the way the financial system's kind of geared up towards. They only look at it from one side of things. And what we want to think about is from all aspects of things.
Yeah.
So how to build a savings account, how to make that systematic, how to make sure that you own it. You have access to it in any ways, where you store it. There's roughly 6 places you can store liquid cash. People don't know that. So when the next pandemic hits, and I'm just using pandemic, but it could be any event in your life, when that hits, and let's just say you had 6 months, let's say you had a year's worth of your income stored.
Yeah.
Are you going to be impacted as hard as if you're like scrambling from paycheck to paycheck?
Oh my goodness. No, I know.
You'd be able to handle it. And it would suck that you have to dig into that money.
Yeah.
But you don't have to sell your house. You don't have to sell off assets.
Right. Because you're impacting your family then, and that's the whole thing, because I think I'm picking on like my kids, but it's the same thing for any age. But I think if they start planning now, for the future, they have that longer of a time horizon right, out there that they can really move it around and think about it. But I know that one of the things you were talking about is you really like to work with, and really focus on women building, wealth through
Yeah.
these means.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And when I tell people that, roughly 75 to 80% of my clients are women.
Yeah.
I had no idea that. I just did an exercise where I was like, who are my clients?
Yeah.
And they were women. And half of those are single moms.
Yeah.
Right. So they have a special place in my heart because they're the hardest working people out there.
Yeah.
And if something happens to them, what happens to their child?
Yeah.
Or imagine having 2 children.
Yeah.
Right. And the financial catastrophe that's waiting for that is a totally different set of circumstances that I will never be able to understand.
Right.
But we can walk through these scenarios because I'm thinking she's right. These moms are going to tell me something that I don't know about.
Right.
And I'm going to share something that they have maybe thought about.
Right.
So there's a collaboration here.
Sure.
It's not me telling somebody what to do.
Right.
It's what would you like to have happen?
Right. And let's make it happen.
And then I walk alongside of them the whole way
Mhm.
to make sure that we're buttoning up everything that you may be accessing, like a lawsuit or some type of loss or
Yeah.
something like that. Right. We want to avoid catastrophes as best we can.
Right.
So what I tell them is, instead of just planning for the great times, anybody can do that. We want to plan for the best outcome for the most circumstances, even the worst scenario, right? So they get sick, a health issue, person dies too early or something like that. There's a plan in place. And there's no scrambling for those documents or anything. I take care of those things because my business is more of a concierge type business. I don't have a big book of business. I take care of my clients. I love my clients. I invest in my clients, and they get my resources and my time whenever they want. So,
I've known you for a number of years now, and I always felt comfortable in speaking to you from the beginning, because for whatever reason, like you're saying, you just have this natural way, I think, of being confident, but not overbearing ever. Do you know what I mean? So like that, I think, is like you're confident in what you can teach and how you can help, but it's very much like I always felt like that coaching versus telling people what to do. You know what I mean? You're coaching. Can you relate? Can you kind of think about like your experience coaching? Like how is that different? How is that background giving you this different kind of mindset that you have now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And one of the things that I've missed most about coaching was at the end of every training day, I'd pull everybody together and I'd have a message about what we did. And not just about what we did, but how it's going to impact you during your game, your relationships with your teammates, and at some point in your future. And I would always say that at some point in your future, you're thinking I'm just being a crazy old man telling you what's going to happen. This is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it would happen to me, and it happened to me. These things you're going to meet a lot of difficult situations and people to deal with. How are you going to work around those things? And it was always some type of life lesson.
Yeah, I was going to say, and
the same. So I do the same thing with clients, right?
Yeah.
People, I hate same clients. I do the same people that come to me and want my help. We have conversations just like you and I are having.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk through different aspects of their life. And it's just, they tell me, they give me information. I give them information. And then, right. So we're out here, but at the end, we're coming to some other completely different part of the conversation, right?
Yeah. Almost unexpected, right?
Yeah. It's creating a different vision for both of us.
Yeah.
And we take a picture of that.
Yeah.
And that's our starting point. And then every time we meet, whether that's 90 days, 180 days, or once a year, we create a new one to see how much we've progressed from where we started from.
And let me ask you something. So I know that you have a farm,
Yeah.
with a lot of different types of animals on it. What, any life lessons from that? I know you and I had talked about really seeds and kind of farming. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? Because I just found, I always remember that, what you told me.
Yeah. So the most important part about when you're planting a seed is understanding your soil. If you have clay soil, you're not going to really grow too much there. So you have to amend it. And so we take compost that we use from our goats and our chickens, and we put it into the soil, and we mix it up, and we create a new soil, right? A new type of soil. And
Mhm.
then over winter, we put some cover over it, like seed it with grass or something like that, and then turn it over again. So we're creating a healthy environment for the land, the soil itself. And it's just like anything else we're going to do. We have to create that first, right? So when we're talking about savings, this is the savings part of it, right? We're saving the nutrients in the soil. Then you plant a seed, right? And that's the idea that we're talking to people.
Yeah.
And then you water it. Everybody, nothing lives without water,
Right.
including us, right? So if we're 75% water, that seed's going to need water to make sure it's propagating. Seeds are
The
uh,
ideas propagate
yeah.
is,
So
yeah.
but it starts growing down, right?
Mhm.
Everything starts growing down.
Yeah.
And interesting fact was, I was just watching a video. They were talking about aspen trees and how aspen trees are just one big connected tree. They all
Yeah.
have, they all have the same root system.
Yeah. I heard that.
And that happens with like mushrooms and things like that. And they create this whole ecological system under the soil,
Yep.
right? So if you have mushrooms growing, it's doing marvelous things for your soil. But then that thing starts shooting up out of the air. Summertime's coming up, and my pumpkins are finally growing for the first time in 3 years. I'm so psyched this year. But the thing with that is, you had to weed them. I went out there every day after I trained, and I weeded them.
Mhm.
And I got rid of all the things that were inhibiting the growth.
Mhm.
Just like we have to weed people in and out of our lives. But if you're diligent with those things, you will have tomatoes, you will have pumpkins, you will have squash, you have all these other things. Just like you do it with your business, you get all these other fruits and all these other relationships, right? And it's the same. It's the perfect analogy to anything in life.
I love it.
It
I
just
really,
starts with taking care of the soil.
I love it. And the thing is I know this about you, that you're really passionate about it and you're really thoughtful person. And I think I just really want to say thank you for coming and speaking with me, because I always, I think I just would say to most people listening to this that they need to have a conversation with you, because and I think you see that with the other people that we know. I'll hear that a lot, like, hey, did you talk to Dave? Or Dave was, I spoke to Dave and this is what happened, and it's always a positive experience. So I think you may have heard or may not have heard that, but just know that that's how people are thinking of you. If somebody wants to have a conversation with you like this, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'll just throw out my cell phone is, I don't make any secret about it, 860-878-2917. Or my business email is dhouser, HOUSER, at unique advantage, all one word, .biz.
Great.
But feel free to text me. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
And I know that one of the things, it's not just, I know if it's somebody that, somebody other than women want to talk to you, I'm
Yeah,
sure that you'd be more than happy. Farmers,
yeah, the same principles.
players.
Yeah, so the same principles apply to everybody. Those just seem to be the people I gravitate to.
Yeah, definitely. But like I was saying, hockey players, football players,
Yeah,
anybody.
absolutely.
So I want to thank you. I always thought that we should just call you Coach Dave, but I know that you always like shied from that. But I do consider you that.
But I'm now open to that type of thing, and that was all. It's all because of I had this epiphany,
Right.
and So, but that's
That the two,
whole different conversation.
your past and your present are coming together,
Yeah, it's,
really seeing.
yeah, absolutely. And it made me have better conversations with people.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Oh, you're the best. You're the
Thanks.
best, Tina.
Thank you.
Thanks.